Am I my brother's keeper? Do I have responsibility for my fellow human being? Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church, and this is your daily devotional for Saturday, November 1st, 2025. This is perhaps the single most important question in the Bible, second only maybe to the question of belief in God. It sets the tone for much of the biblical drama that is to come. For example, it anticipates Leviticus 19:18, "You shall love your neighbor as yourself." So you see, this question gets to the heart of what it means to be human. The story of Cain and Abel, from which this question comes, so far has started with Cain and Abel both presenting offerings to God. Cain from the produce of the land, Abel from among the flocks he keeps. For reasons that are not mentioned, and therefore not really in play, God accepts Abel's offering, but rejects Cain's. From the context of the story, it is clear that God's rejection of Cain's offering is not a permanent rejection of Cain himself. God even seems to hold out the possibility that future offerings may well be accepted. But the damage is done. Cain is angry, and in his misplaced anger seeks vengeance on his brother Abel. Now the story moves to its tragic midpoint, and we read, "Cain said to his brother Abel, 'Let us go out to the field.' And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord said to Cain, 'Where is your brother Abel?' He said, 'I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?'" So have you ever watched a tragic movie for the umpteenth time, knowing the tragedy that is about to unfold, and yet you find yourself hoping that maybe this time around the characters will behave differently and avoid the tragedy? That's how I feel about this story. But of course, the story is the story, and the ending cannot be changed. Cain is going to kill his brother Abel every time we read it. But if it's possible, the killing is not the worst of it. God comes back on the scene to ask Cain a simple question: "Where is your brother Abel?" Notice that God names Abel. God doesn't simply ask, "Where is your brother?" but "Where is your brother Abel?" This is personal. It appears Cain knows the game is up, but he still tries to evade detection. First, he lies. "I do not know." Then he digs himself even further into his hole. "Am I my brother's keeper?" In Hebrew, this is just 3 words. And with these 3 words, Cain lays before us the tragic sin of humankind in refusing to care for one another, in refusing to take responsibility for each other's well-being. Not only does he ask an insolent question, but he doesn't even use Abel's name. He has erased his brother. Now, this question is ironic because Cain means it in a rhetorical sense, with the implied answer being, "No, I am not my brother's keeper." But in presenting it this way, the writer of the story also means it as a rhetorical question, but with the opposite answer. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. It serves to expose Cain's heart, and what we see isn't pretty. And it exposes the heart of many who refuse to see caring for one another as a biblical imperative today. The further irony of Cain's question is that the word keeper is from the same root word used in the blessing that God commanded Aaron to say to the children of Israel, and which we still use today: "The Lord bless you and keep you." To refuse to keep one another, to watch over one another, is a betrayal of who we are as God's people. In Western culture right now, and especially in our own country, the notion that we are our brother's keeper seems to be under attack. I don't want to be overly dramatic about it, but we seem to be in a place where people often care, or at least profess to care, only about themselves and perhaps those within their smallest circle of friends and family. Care for others is actually regarded with some suspicion, as if it were a left-leaning conspiracy. Case in point, a young woman in Dallas named Allie Beth Stuckey one of those influencers we've heard so much about, recently wrote a book entitled Toxic Empathy: How Progressives Exploit Christian Compassion. She argues that empathy, a basic concern for others, is a liberal plot. And in case you think hers is a lone voice, Joe Rigney, a theologian at New St. Andrews College in Idaho, recently wrote a similar book entitled The Sin of Empathy: Compassion and Its Counterfeits. Let that sink in for a minute. Empathy is a sin. But is it? The truth of Scripture is that we are indeed responsible for each other. We cannot be responsible for each other's choices, but we are responsible for each other's well-being. Am I my brother's keeper? The answer in the Bible is a resounding and uncompromising yes. So, yesterday, jealousy and misplaced anger. Today, murder and denial. On Monday, we hear from Abel one more time. Now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.